the last presentation is Rotaro Hayashi. He will present the long-term impact of female secondary school stipend assistance program in Bangladesh. Floor is yours.
Thank you for providing me this opportunity to make a presentation about the female secondary stipend and assistance program in Bangladesh. What did it accomplish? As Brian said, this is not a health impact evaluations. This is actually social protections but we look at some of the health related outcomes. So I hope participants to have some fun hearing this presentation. So my name is Ryotaro Hayashi with ADB. I will make a presentation on behalf of Shahid Kantka, Hussein Samat, and Nobuhiko Fua. So the focus of presentation is the secondary school students in Bangladesh as shown in this picture. However, our analysis follows up same individual for 26 years. We argue that female stipend program for these girls improve short-term schooling outcomes. We even found out positive impact on long-term outcomes such as marriage and employment status, as well as spillover effects on siblings' educations and their husbands. Let me begin with the discussions why FSSAP is such an important research topic. FSSAP is a female secondary stipend and assistance program. This is the abbreviation we use throughout the presentations. And the receiving education is fundamental human rights that all human beings are entitled to take. However, educating girls could have important consequences in later life, such as higher labor force participation and earnings, improving inter-household bargaining power through female empowerment, marry later resulting into lower fertility, and even intergenerational effects on better educated and healthier children. A previous similar pandemic also tells us that the COVID-19 could affect girls disproportionately, and it is important to discuss measures to mitigate the risk of school dropouts for girls. Then what is FSSAP? FSSAP is a pioneer conditional cash transfer in the world, targeting female students only. It started from 1994, or much earlier than world-famous conditional cash transfer or Progresa or Oportunidades in Mexico. The cash is given to all female students in rural areas between grade 6 and grade 10, subject to meeting the 3 eligibility criteria discussed here. First, the girls have to attend 75% of the school days. Second, securing at least 45% marks in the annual examination. Third, remain unmarried until completion of secondary school certificate examination. The cash amount is quite small or compared with other conditional cash transfer in different developing countries. The history of the female stipend program dates back to 1982 when the USAID started a small cash transfer program for girls. After that, NORAD, a Norwegian development agency, funded stipend program in 1987 and gradually expanded. After 1994, it became nationwide female secondary stipend program supported by 4 agencies, ADB, World Bank, NORAD, and Government of Bangladesh. It covers grades 6 to 10, and this is considered quite successful in increasing female access to education, but lack of focus on the poor was pointed out as challenges. From 2008, the government launched pro-poor stipend programs. The coverage expanded to grades 6 to 12. Both boys and girls were included for all 4 projects. From 2018, harmonized stipend program is introduced. And the ADB, as you can see in this blue shaded part, ADB has been the largest development partners in secondary education, and this analysis focuses on the FSSAP during 1994 and the until 2008 period. This is time series girls enrollment in Bangladesh from 1970. Girls enrollment rate was 18% in 1970. But the gross enrollment rate in 2070 was 82%. A reversal in gender gap in secondary school enrollment happened during 1995 to 2000, around this time period. And rate of increase was quite sharp during 1990 and 2000. ADB and other development partners attribute this reversal to FSSAP intervention. For example, in ADB operational document, it says female stipend assistance program undoubtedly have contributed to the reversal of inequity of female enrollment in secondary schools, as girls now outnumber boys. However, this reversal might be caused by general stable macroeconomic growth, or booming garment industry with large number of educated female workforce might lead this change. The belief in the ADB operational document might not necessarily be correct. So the research and policy question is, what would have happened in Bangladesh had the female secondary stipend program not been introduced in early 1990s? Another follow-up question is, were there causal long-term transformational impacts beyond education outcomes, such as age at marriage, female labor force participations, and the fertility? The FSSAP was a globally famous program, especially before Progressa in Mexico, and many researchers worked on this question in the past. So what do we know already? This is the systematic review on, there is a systematic review on conditional and unconditional cash transfers for schooling outcomes. And we can see that conditional cash transfer provides positive effects on schooling outcomes in most of the cases. Among many cases, one study conducted by co-author in 2003 examined FSSAP schooling outcome, and the effect size is larger than famous Progressa in Mexico, as you can see in this slide. And some of the researchers also worked on understanding the long-term effects of FSSAP. Han and other researchers conducted difference in differences using cross-sectional data using Bangladesh Demographic and Health Survey. Please note that the FSSAP intervention is not randomly assigned, so any study related to FSSAP needs to use course-experimental impact evaluation strategy. The research shows a positive impact on labor market outcomes, delayed marriage, fertility, husband characteristics, and children's outcome. The limitation of this study, however, is that it could not control unobserved time invariant and varying heterogeneity due to limitation of cross-section data. The actual implementation variations were not fully controlled as well. The treatment is rural eligible females, but the comparator is same age urban females, not rural females. So let's turn our attention in the dataset we have. We used 4 rounds of longitudinal data across 26 years. The first data was collected in 1991 before the FSSAP intervention in 1994, which served as a baseline. This data has information about all individuals with age 1 to 20 born between 1973 and 1992 in survey area. In 1998, 2010, and 2018, there were 3 additional rounds of panel survey conducted, and we followed up same individuals. The original survey was conducted for microfinance research purpose, but we could add questions specific to FSSAP take-up in later surveys, such as actual stipend receiving years and actual grades at age. The information can account for actual implementation variation of FSSAP. Attrition rate among individuals between 1991 and 2018 was around 17.2%. This slide shows conceptual understanding of 3 different cohorts, which is important for our course experimental impact evaluation strategy. As discussed, FSSAP started in 1994, but initially only grade 6 and grade 9 female students could receive stipend. Then FSSAP gradually expands to other grades, such as grades 6, 7, 9, and 10 in 1995, and covering all grades 6 to 10 from 1996 onwards. Please look at the cohorts highlighted in red on the left-hand side here. The females who were born in 1983 became grade 6 in 1994 at age 11. They became grade 7 in 1995, and were still eligible for stipend. Same for grade 8 in 1996, and the grade 9 in 1997, and grade 10 in 1998. In other words, this cohort could continuously receive stipend for 5 years consecutively during grade 6 to 10. Similarly, all of the females who were born after 1983, meaning like 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987, those females could also receive stipend for 5 years. We call this cohort collectively as cohort 1. Then please turn your attention to the cohorts highlighted in blue in this slide. The female who were born in 1980 became grade 9 in 1994 at age 14. This one, yes. And they could receive stipend for 2 years in 1994 as grade 9, and the grade 10, grade 10 in 1995 5, yes. Similarly, females who were born in 1981 and 1982 could receive stipend for 2 years during grade 9 and grade 10. Therefore, all females who were born during 1980 and 1982, those 3 years, could receive stipend for 2 years only during grade 9 and 10, rather than 5 years in cohort 1. So we call this cohort marked blue collectively as cohort 2. Contrary, the females who were born before 1979 were not able to receive stipend at all, and we call this as cohort 3, serving as a control group. In 2010, cohort 1 is age 20 to 27, cohort 2 is age 28 to 30, and cohort 3 is age 30 and above. And in 2017, cohort 1 is age 27 to 34, cohort 2 is age 35 to 37, and cohort 3 is age 38 and above. Among children in rural Bangladesh, we will compare cohort 1 against cohort 3, or cohort 2 against cohort 3 for comparison purpose. Before presenting the key findings, we conducted 2 tests. First one is attrition bias test. We had 17.2% attrition of individuals as reported in the previous slide. This is not necessarily high considering 26 years of follow-ups, but this could be an issue if the attrition is non-random. However, we found none of the household or village level characteristics are associated with attrition as a result of probit regression with attrition as a function of socioeconomic characteristics.
Second, you have a 4 minutes.
Okay. Second test is baseline balance. Fssap is not RCT, but there is a possibility that it may behave like RCT because eligibility to participate in Fssap is based on exogenous criteria, which is girls' age. However, a few household and community characteristics actually vary in baseline data, such as Dataset, number of schools in village, and village electrification rate. This is potentially a source of concern, but our fixed effects estimation discussed in next slide should be able to control for these characteristics. Yes, so we use 2 different impact evaluation methods, namely difference in differences and instrumental variables. First one is intent to treat effects following generalized form of difference in difference using panel data. And we also assessed treatment on the treated effects using instrumental variable approach. And where S is a dummy variable indicating whether girl I actually received any stipend during the year T, and eta is time varying unobserved individual household community level determinants of the outcome of interest. IB is a dummy variable which indicates that the girl is eligible to participate in Fssap. For the instrumental variable, we confirmed that the first stage is statistically significant and the instrument could meet identifying assumption because of its exogenous age-specific eligibility. Yeah, we also try to check the parallel trend assumption, even though this may not be a perfect solution. We created a C3 variable representing cohort 3, but takes the value 1 if it is randomly selected birth years between 1971 and 1979, and take the value 0 if it is for the rest of the years. The coefficient of the cohort 3 is not statistically significant for screening outcomes, and this could imply meeting parallel trend assumptions. Yes, finally, so we check a series of short-term and long-term outcomes in education, marriage, health, and spillover effect to siblings and the husband listed here. There are clearly positive effects on all these outcomes except for women's labor force participation on the 3rd columns. And however, it's not surprising that there is no statistically significant effect on women's labor force participation because cohort 1 includes younger generation compared with cohort 3. So this is the result of the treatment on the treated effects. I don't go into the detail, but it suggests similar findings from the intent to treat analysis and showing the robustness of the results. This is a very crude calculation, but we also computed cost-benefit analysis yielding 3.14, implying like over 200% benefit. So we had 4 key conclusions. First, Fssap had short-term schooling effects with an average of 2.5 years of additional schooling years during 5-year stipend program and 10.2 percentage point increase of secondary school completion for girls. Second, long-term effects were clear not only for delaying marriage, which Fssap intended to achieve, but also fertility outcomes, including more preference of daughters. Third, positive spillover effects for siblings, boys, education as well as husband education and jobs are found out as well. In addition, these findings are robust because intent to treat and the treatment on the treated effects are largely similar. So this prompted us to note the 4 policy implications and caveats. First, FSSAP had positive short-term and long-term effects beyond educational outcomes and was cost-effective investments to reduce gender disparity. Second, for Bangladesh, where gender disparity on access to school has been reduced, secondary stipend targeted only for girls may not be as effective as it used to be, at least during pre-COVID-19 period. Third, government of Bangladesh prepares for harmonized stipend program for secondary levels by targeting poor and disadvantaged students. This could be a right direction, but the quality enhancement measure needs to be strengthened further. Last but not least, during COVID-19, female students will be affected disproportionately, and government across the countries may wish to provide conditional cash transfer after school reopening, considering short and long-term consequences, as we were found out in this paper. Yeah, this is the end of my presentation, but I would like to thank for co-authors. But actually, Nobuhiko very unfortunately passed away when this data was collected, but without his dedication, this paper never came out at this stage. I also wanted to thank Shahid and Hussein, who took over analysis and did most of the write-ups using different panel data collected by different institutions. I'm also grateful for part of this team, as ADB has been supporting FSSAP for a long time in Bangladesh and would like to publish this ADB working paper soon, hopefully within this year, reflecting your suggestions and comments. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody who want to ask questions? Yes, Ryotaro, why don't you look at the comments on the chat box?
Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple of suggestions by Professor Kono and myself. Sure. So why don't you address like the first one? Compare your study with Heth and Mubarak.
Okay, I cannot see the comments. I don't know why.
Oh, the comments are...
Brent, why don't you read out the comments?
Right, yes. Why don't you, Professor Kono, why don't you talk directly?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're going to be beneficial to compare with the study by the Heath and Mubarak, who investigate the impact of the female stipend and manufacturing expansion using the triple differences, which are not referred in your slide. But
okay.
Yeah.
Is this one, 2015 manufacturing growth?
That's right, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we are cognizant about the studies, yes.
Yeah, but when you compare with the other studies, like just the differences, then so here's some Mubarak show that this is a limited impact. So then why you found larger impacts? What drive the differences between your study and their studies?
So Hisaki, probably, can I interject? Hisaki's suggestion probably identifying a garment and non-garment villages and include this another angle to compare Heath and Mubarak JD. Is that correct, Hisaki?
Yeah, so that's gonna be one of the confounding factors, and they also show investigate the impact on the stipend. Actually, they show that this is smaller than the manufacturing expansions. So you may want to compare their study and your studies and how the results are different and where the difference comes from in the methodology.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. And we are actually surprised to see these articles and trying to check whether FSSP is not so effective or not. But maybe the data set we use are different. So that may be partly explain the different results, but we will certainly check what could drive the different results.
Right. Yeah, but I had one question and comment, and would it be possible for you to get the exact birth date data?
Exact birth date? I mean, you mean exact birth date?
Yes, yes. That actually allows you to apply regression discontinuity design. Like basically, yeah, not just
Yeah,
comparing,
Hmm.
not just comparing cohort 1, 2, 3. These are very different people, but if you compare, just happen to just happen to be a group 1, but cohort 1 versus group 2, that would be more ideal setting to compare. So if you have a birth date and there is a school start date, I'm not sure developing country is strictly applying this rule, but there might be.
Yeah, I think in our questionnaire we have a birth date, and in the FSSAP questionnaire, we actually ask about the actual grade they are in. So we
Yep.
should be able to identify who is in in grade cohort 1, cohort 2, and cohort 3, like those threshold, and we can potentially apply the regression discontinuity. Yes,
Yes,
that's possible.
yes, yes, yes. That would be very interesting. And the last comment is that like basically you look multiple outcomes, so it might be more useful to apply like more conservative approaches on standard errors. So there is a couple of ways recent development on this topic. So feel
Yeah,
free
I also
to.
note Professor Kono was also aggregating the outcomes, which may be applicable to our papers. Yes, and we are also looking at many different outcomes. So potentially, we just find statistically significant impact by chance. So yeah,
Right.
that's another areas for further improvement.
Yeah,
Right.
developed by the Romano Wolf, who conducted multiple hypothesis testing using some bootstrapping. So maybe you may want to refer to that. Romano
Right.
Wolf 2005 Econometrica.
Yeah, like if you read recent article by World Bank, Arulf, there is one comment instead. Another more popular one is W. Young, which I mean, both of them are like applicable in your setting. So yeah, feel free to use it.
Okay, thank you very much for your constructive suggestions. We will certainly take into look at those.
Yes. Any other questions? So let me. Any other questions about the last paper?
Because you are using the full round of the survey and the DID, basically you are controlling a fixed effect. And if he consider like heterogeneous impact, in that case, some recent literature show that if you do two fixed effects, then actually some negative weight are allocated to the control or treatment. So maybe you may want to look at some 2019 year paper, this Chandler something, like two-way fixed effect and heterogeneous impacts. And they also have the software to implement the analysis.
Okay, thank you very much for your suggestions.
Yep. So let me wrap up this session, and this is the last opportunity to ask questions in any presenters. It could be if you miss the opportunity.
Brian?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, may I? So I actually wrote this in the chat box. This is Tomoki Fuji. So I have actually a couple of comments. One is that the FSSP, there was a pilot prior to 1994, although the coverage was pretty small. So I think it will be useful to check whether the sample includes a population that is, the sample, covers the area in which, pilot program was carried out. And I also have, have a paper on this topic, and in my paper, Heath and Mubarak's results seem to be driven by a combination of several things. The particular area that they chose to study and the particular data set they used, and also the eligibility criteria that they used to do the analysis. And the last one seems to be particularly important because if you believe that you need to have completed 6 years instead of 5 years of education, you have to be already in the secondary school in order to be eligible. So I think, if you get rid of these conditions, we find that FSP female stipend program indeed had a positive impact on the enrollment. And I think it'll be useful. Our setting is repeated cross-section. So it'll be great if you could take that into account in your analysis. And I think it'll be useful to look at whether your results are robust to the presence of repeating grades. I think if I understand correctly, your eligibility is based on the grade, and you assume that the grade progression is completely smooth. I don't know if you have information about grade repetition, but I think some allowance for making some allowance for grade repetition is important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we should have a grade repetition data in our dataset, but we will check on also check your records, and we will try to make argument why our paper shows statistically significant results compared with the Mubarak paper. Thanks.
Yep. And Yasu has a last comment on your paper.
Yeah, my comment is not for Ryotaro's paper, but our paper on Shiseido. Actually, the reason why we couldn't do RCT was when I figured out this evaluation project by JICA, it was too late. They did their own evaluation with only one control. So I asked Isaki and others to join to fix to some extent. And then we are planning to do RCT, but unfortunately there was a terrorist attack incident, very sad incident happened in July 2016. So we gave up RCT-based evaluation. So that was the reason. Yeah.
That's why. Okay, thank you. Thank you
for your clarification.
Okay, so it's time to leave. Why don't you click on the leave room and let's meet up in the overall session. Leave the breakout rooms. Thank you so much.